Hi there, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air Magazine. We have a brand new debut video, and I love this guy's work. His name is Steve Curry, and he does these incredible landscape paintings that just have this vibe to them that is so wonderful. It's called Finding Your Voice, Painting with Creative Expression. Let's roll this sample right now.
Hi there, my name is Steve Curry, and I'm here today to share with you what I call the impressionistic landscape. This video is about how to use a starting off point as a visual reference, be it a photo, be it live, taking the impression of that scene, what excites you about that, modifying it, editing it, and then making it yours. It's actually a real tree, a real location located on 17 Mile Drive in Carmel. Pretty famous, it's called the Ghost Tree, and when I say impressionistic, I mean that I want to have the impression what drew me to this subject. And the tree has this wonderful sweeping trunk. That's what I want to emphasize. It's pretty busy, it's got a lot of branches flying all over the place, but I wanted a vertical format, almost like I was lying on the floor looking up at it. I really wanted that upward sweeping motion. So that's how I stylized and did my impression of this scene. A lot of editing down to the basics of what I really wanted to say visually. That could be the same thing you use in any subject, whether it's a plowed farm field, freshly plowed, and the grooves that the trowel made. It could be that, it could be anything, but what draws you to a subject? So we're going to have fun today. Let's get started. Okay, so let's talk about materials. I'll start with my palette knives. I don't really paint with these, although you can. I mainly use this one for mixing. I get that, I want to clean it off. I can do it on this large one and then transfer that back down onto this glass palette, which I prefer using something also with a neutral gray like this, so I can see the colors. White on white doesn't really do me much good if this was a white palette. So color-wise, these are my two cheek colors over here. This is titanium white mixed with a little viridian. I get this nice high-key green blue that I can use and often do in skies. Same with my ultramarine blue and titanium mix to get this blue. It's a little dark right now, but I can always add white. And when I call cheek colors, you'll see I can use those. I don't have to keep mixing. That's kind of my mother petals. So coming up here to this row, it's a fairly tight palette in terms of its extensive, and I like that, especially if you're going to be outdoors painting. A limited palette on your little, palette that you're using is, I don't know, to me it's just more efficient, easier to control. So kind of cool to warm to kind of a cool red. Ultramarine blue, viridian, burnt sienna, titanium white. These are also my two cheat mixtures. I don't use black. So these are my versions of my darkest darks, and they share what's already on the palette. They're pre-mixed just like these are. I don't have to go back and do all that. I'm going to be dipping into these quite a bit. This first one is ultramarine blue and burnt sienna for a nice kind of warm dark. Second one is ultramarine blue and alizarin. Both of these combinations are semi-transparent colors, so they're really versatile. Rolling into my warm colors, Cad Yellow Light, really powerful. It's a strong color, and I can use that to warm anything up. This burnt sienna is a warm, but it's an earth tone, but I can also do that depending on how much I want to gray down a color. Cad Medium Red, again a powerful color. This one's sort of a funny color. It's they call it a permanent red. The brand I have found, which I don't think is an overly expensive brand, is Van Gogh, but it's permanent red. It's really powerful. It's kind of cold, which I like because I got my warms over here. And then alizarin, which I consider to be a cold red, if you want to call it that way. So brushes, I use mainly flats. I have kind of a large and a small, this depending on what kind of detail I want to use, but the large ones, this can get really sharp here when I got paint on it. I can use these edges for detail work as well. Then I might use some rounds. Here's 2 different sizes. I kind of like these because they're big and moppy. The smaller ones I can do some minor detail work with and put in sky holes and things like that I love doing. Then for detail work, I will use synthetic sables. And these are 2 different sizes. This one's really nice for doing kind of on, our size of our panel, detail work. So both of those are kind of large to small. And then there are times, I don't know if I will use it on this painting or not, but just a regular old household China bristle brush you can get at your local hardware store. And what's great about these things, first of all, they're cheap, but they're very soft. They can blend really great. If you are wanting to block in a bigger painting, you can get really big ones and, just go at it on your canvas. So, and you really don't even have to clean them, just toss them if you want. I usually get 2 or 3 uses out of them and then, they're on to something else. Okay, solvent or medium is Gamsol. I will use both, but odorless mineral spirits at your local hardware store is a lot cheaper. You don't have to pay for shipping if you have your art supplies shipped, through the various outlets. And there's also a lot of restrictions, at least in California, getting this stuff. So I typically use any combination. If I have this, Gamsol is great. If not, odorless mineral spirits, I don't know the difference, can't tell. Q-tips, this is everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people, I don't know, it's just a great wipeout tool. Little sky holes, mainly at the beginning when I'm putting things on the canvas, I will use this, or kind of the edge of my rag with a fingernail underneath. The rags today I'm using are just kind of a soft paper towel, but they're pretty nice. And again, you can, tightly wipe out something. You'll see that when we do our block in. And I believe that concludes our materials other than our painting surface. This is an area where I can save money. I make my own and the quality is just as good as that I can buy. And these can get really pricey if you've shopped online or whatever for high quality panels. This is Belgium linen with Miracle Muck, which is an archival glue, laminated to a piece of masonite, and I'll buy the masonite big. I've got a table saw, but the substrate could be gator board, and gator board is also, I believe it's archival, and you can cut it with a utility knife at home. Really easy to make your own panels and save money should you want a panel. I like panels because they're stiff and I beat them up as I'm painting. If this was a canvas, they get weepy and that's just not my style. I don't feel comfortable with it. I like the tooth of this medium Belgium linen. You can get fine, you can get coarse. This is single primed, you can get double primed. Play around with what you feel works best for you. So I believe that concludes our materials. So let's get started putting some paint on this panel. Okay, so before I start painting, I always do a thumbnail. That's one of the first rules. It saves time. I can figure out my spatial arrangements, how I want the painting to look. They're not elaborate, but they give me a little roadmap to where I'm going to be going. So let's get started on that. I have a basic pad. It's just a piece of paper, really. There's a lot of them, but it's a pad. Simple pencil, a 2B. I have a mechanical pencil over here for some tighter work if I want to do that. And it has an eraser where I can pull out things. But again, they're not elaborate. This is the actual tree over here. You can see it's kind of a twisted, mangled mess. If I were to try to paint and draw all these little things, I don't want that. That's what I'm talking about the impression of this landscape. So I'm doing a vertical. It's definitely not this angle. When I was there, it was probably more off to here, but almost lying on the floor looking upward, the sweeping motion of this tree. So how do I want to take this and, again, use what I found most interesting were these sweeping trunks. So I'm going to kind of indicate my rocks down here first, kind of give me a base. I know that I want to keep this tree, I don't want it to bleed off the edge. I want to keep it here and play with the sky tones later as we get into that. But here's the main tree. Fair amount of drawing on this one, versus a big clump of heavy eucalyptus or oak tree or whatever. But, the trunk, what I found most enticing was this big sweep. And I'm exaggerating it. I've got the license to go ahead and modify. I've gotten pulled over a few times and had to show that license. But, have fun with it. This is your world. And you get to do what you want to do. I have this little tree over here, this trunk, the way it went. I want to kind of put that in. So I'm really just lightly drawing in, like I would be with, my brush when we get into the panel. But, looking at my negative shapes, and I'm going to start scrubbing in some tone in a little bit here. But again, much more drawing involved in this. So just want to see where I want to put these trunks. There's kind of like two big ones, a little scraggler off to the side here. And I'll get more into the details and sky holes and things like that. So kind of had a horizon line of the water out here. I don't want to make it so hard. I might lower it a little bit. So these rocks, I'll get into more of a stylization when I paint. But I kind of have my little tick mark, little chicken scratches of where I want things to be. And just continue on building this. So because I have so much drawing in here and kind of want to see what's going on, this will take longer than my usual thumbnails, because I do want to see where things are going. So this 2B, you can put it off to the side, scrub in your darks, and it actually sharpens the point at the same time. I just want to put a tone down here for my rocks. My darkest darks really are going to be the foliage up here. I'm trying to think of all the famous people that have painted this tree. I don't know if Arthur Matthews or Guy Rose, or that whole coastline is just so gorgeous. Point Lobos is another treasure trove of these coastal cypress trees. This one, again, being the most twisted, which is what I like about it. And again, my impression of it, how these trunks went, and they're just beautiful. So I'm going to scrub in. I want it kind of dark over here. Again, my main emphasis is this kind of central trunk. This is the grandfather of all these offspring here. But so I'm kind of liking how, this is breaking up the space. Again, like I said, I wanted to keep some sky above. I always want to be, looking at what's going on here. I don't want this tangent, meaning like if I did a blew up version and the tip of my cypress tree was like right on there, that's a big no-no, So if I commit, if I'm going to bleed it off, have enough of a chunk of that to where it's going to do so. Same with the bottom. I might pull this one back in, but for right now I'm going to bleed it out. See how that be. Got a lot of little, trunks and branches that we'll get into as we build this painting. So, and I'm going to have, little tones back here. Again, I'm not overworking this thumbnail. This is not the final piece. These are things just to give me kind of an idea of how I want to break up the proportions on this panel. So I'm going to use this little mechanical pencil, but it's kind of cool. It's got a nice, consistent, sharp point. If I wanted to, get some white out kind of thing, like, put a trunk in over here, this built-in eraser. It's just something quick and easy, and that's all I want. I don't want all my time being spent here working at every single little detail. But it's important, what's enough that you can work off of. So from here to what I have here, And again, it's going to be refined as we start with paint and how these rocks work. And I might even add another layer of down here. I think there was another layer of different striations of these boulders. But again, they're not beautiful. They're not supposed to be. It's not my intent for these things, but I want to know where I'm going. So for me, I have enough information to work off of this to where I can now take this and apply it to our panel. So let's get started. Okay, so we've gone over materials, we've done our thumbnail, our reference photo. Now it's time to have some fun. So let's get started. I'm going to start with my flat. I like bigger is better at this point. You don't want to be getting fussy. I'm going to loosen it up a little bit with some Gamsol. That wasn't so clean. Look at that. I guess there's some paint still on there, but it doesn't matter at this point. I'm going to use this to kind of know where I want to go. That was the whole reason for doing this thumbnail in the first place. So of how I want to break up the page. And it's cool because, you know, when you're doing this stuff live, you can look at it at this big expanse. Some people use a viewfinder or whatever to focus it in, but that's always wiggling back and forth as you're going in and out. This is static right now for me, and I can use that again, mainly for my spatial arrangement where I want things to be. It's a little soupy. And again, I'm using that edge to kind of draw with. I might lower this. All this stuff is changeable, by the way, as you know, with oil paints versus watercolors. I'm always talking about that. I'm always so impressed with watercolor painters with such discipline and precision. Because my initial stuff, a lot of times I'll be like, oof, where is this going? And then, which makes it all that much more gratifying at the end when I start to see it come together and, you know, breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, so I had talked about not wanting that to be tangent up there. That's real soupy. I'm going to dry that off a little bit. Okay, yeah, I talked about my arrangement. I wanted some sky showing up there. Just working my way down top to bottom, and I might do some adjustments. I might pull this down, but for now, we're just, you know, I'm going to go a little slower than if I was doing some big, massive, you know, tree that had a very dominant mass. This does, but as you can see, there's a lot of drawing and twists and turns in that tree. So again, I'm using my thumbnail as my main reference. I have this trunk, how far from here to here. I want that, I'm just doing these little indications. They don't mean much probably to the viewer right now, but you'll see as they start to build. Yeah, just being light with my touch. I really don't want the panel to get really soupy and oily and loose. I want to keep it kind of dry and tight, but I need the paint to move, so a little bit of Gamsol goes a long way. That should be a slogan, right? Little dabble do ya, if people are old enough to remember that. I think that was Brill Cream, hair product, a little dabble do ya. Guess I'm dating myself. I'm not that old, I'm old enough. Anyhow, let's just leave it at that. Okay, so here's that big mass up here. Again, I'm going to come back in and probably do some Q-tip work to get some sky holes and things, but I'm just trying to get tone in here. See where I want to go with these things. All right, that's kind of this trunk here. Get some more paint on here. Again, big brush at this point is your friend. You're not going to get into too much trouble, too much fussiness. It's kind of the worst thing you can be doing in painting too, is that tightness, that uptightness that you can get. You're so worried about it being this beautiful thing, or you're painting with friends or whatever, all that stuff that gets into your head, man, it's just the worst. You just gotta, I don't know, listen to some music, do some meditation, get out of your own head and just realize this is fun stuff. I'm going to come back in and wipe some of this stuff out, but okay, here's this other trunk. My values aren't in there yet. I'm really just trying to establish where I want things and get my spatial arrangement. Probably want that a little higher up here. I want this to have a real nice upward motion, a lot of energy, movement. It's going to be, of course, a two-dimensional static painting when finished, but I still want some energy and some charm in here. All right, so I might let's do this. I'll show you how we can do this. Let's just kind of, again, I want to have it loose. I was just about to dip it into some Gamsol, but I want to keep it tighter. But I know I want a darker mass over here, kind of like what I had here. And I know I'm going to have a few other branches and things like there. So looks like a mess to me, so it's got to really look like a mess to you guys. But I am going to do some subtractive painting. And I want a tone down here, so I'm just going to kind of give that. All right, so that looks pretty horrible, right? But again, this is just our underpainting, kind of knowing where we're going to go when, it's going to go from, smushy to tighter to hopefully the final wonderful finish. Okay, so let's see the tone of these trees. And this is just your, finger painting. This is fun. Go up here. I want that trunk. Told you I wanted some tone down here. And the semi-transparent quality of burnt sienna, Elkos, you could be doing this with blue or whatever, but I like this neutral undertone. I'm going to have my horizon line there. I want to have a little bit, I didn't want that to be so chubby down there, so I'm going to give it put it on a diet program. A little slim fast. All right, here's, I have a little Gamsol on the Q-tip, and then you can really, kind of wipe it down to white almost. Okay, I have these trunks that I wanted to put in here that are coming in and out of this other third main tree, I guess I'll call this. So I'm just scrubbing with my finger and, just finger painting. And, you can also, this is kind of like doing a monochromatic painting. You could really just do a painting with, with burnt sienna and really work it out and really be beautiful. I've seen some monochromatic, it's just like a charcoal drawing or anything, but we're doing this with paint. So we're using one source right now. Okay. I want that to be darker in there. And okay, I'm kind of liking, checking my negative areas. Do I like that? Is nothing equidistant? Making sure nothing's too close to the edge without bleeding off and making it a commitment versus, just kissing that corner. really don't want to do that. It's kind of at first kind of hard not to. I know I'm going to put some more style of little branches, you know, kind of. That's the cool thing about these trees. They just kind of dance. Okay, so again, I'm taking some time on this. I'm going to just see, I'm going to refine it, of course, with color, but, you know, if you can get it, you know, to a pretty lovable thing right now, that's always best. It also depends on how much time you have, and if you were painting this and the sun's going down, it's starting to get cold, blah, 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 you've got an appointment or dinner or whatever, you're going to have to, I don't know, do a smaller study. You're going to have to really haul. But for sake of this workshop, for this video, we're gonna do it right. We're on our own time schedule. You guys are probably in your home studios. And you can just, I don't know, sit back, relax, paint along with me. However you want to learn. Okay, so I got enough paint on there. I'm going to try a few of these sky holes. This is where the Q-tips come in handy. Again, I always put a little Gamsol on them, just because I know I got a lot of pigment up here, and I can, you know, and sometimes you can draw with them too. Like, you know, I want to, you know, add another little branch. Oh, I didn't have enough on there, but that's okay. I'm mainly taking away with this, you know, how I want these, you know, I'm adding these little points of interest, these little, you know, trunks and extra things. It just, to me, it makes it more exciting. I know I'm going to have some highlights here because I'm going to do kind of a glowy sunset, so it's going to have some reflective light on the front of the trunks, and that'll be more pronounced as we get into color. But even with here, you can kind of see how that works. You know, this trunk's gonna, this is loaded up now with paint. It's no longer good. Let's try a dry one, see what that looks like. You know, it's just different quality. It's just getting used to your materials. But if I want to open this up in here, I know I'm going to have to dip that in. And I'm going to have to, you know, push fairly hard again. That's why I like a panel. I can push in. I don't have this weepy canvas that's flopping around. Also just like the efficiency of a panel, especially if you're painting outdoors. You know, they're smaller, they're more compact. So let's get our, sort of try to even out our tones back here. All right, and I want some sky holes up here. It's got a lot of paint on it, but let's see what that looks like with the little Gamsol again. I'm going to open up this area. And I'm going to have some of these branches coming up here and playing around in the foliage up here. All these little things, to me, show movement, create interest. And at this stage, it's all about adding, subtracting. You know, what you want this to be. Your impression, again, of the landscape. It's your world. We don't get to often dictate our world. I know there was that movie that Steve Carell played. I think it was a true story. It was called The Life of Marwan. I think that's the title, but he suffered some head trauma, and then his way of escaping was his world. His world was recreating a, I don't know, World War II Belgium village or something like that. So that's a little extreme, but in this, not in that case, but in our case here, this is your own world. And yeah, and we do get to play and have fun. Okay, so let's see. I know I want some more sky holes in here. I'm gonna, yeah, it's just a matter of how much I do here. I have enough if I, you know, was pushed for time. I'd start in with color right now, but I still want to kind of play around, see where I'm going to go with all my little things. I'm going to add some more pigment so I can take it off if I choose. But, you know, how's this all looking? Yeah, I think I'm going to move this trunk up because I moved this higher than when I started indicating it. So I'm going to do that. And again, the beauty of semi-transparent, the beauty of this stage of the painting. This is where, you know, all your composing should be happening. You don't want to be making these changes. If I had all my color down, all of a sudden I'm raising the trunk. I mean, oh God. And I think I have done that, but it's frustrating. You're just burning time and it's unnecessary. So, and what I mean by that, it's unnecessary. If you take the time here and really get it dialed in to where you're happy with it, you can make changes later, but it's not these, I was rushed, I didn't look at that, I'm going to step away. At some point, I'll look at this again. But for now, I'm just starting to keep building and subtracting paint. So, but I'm liking the movement. I'm liking my impression. I might want to kick this angle back a little bit more to really accentuate that curve. You know, things like that. That's how these trees grow too. They just have a lot of personality to them. This one's a little chunkier. Again, that's my second main tree. And I'm going to take off paint. Like I said, I could, if I was rushed, I could work with this as is, but I just still want to take my time and get quiet with it. But I can't get quiet with it because you guys need to know what I'm thinking. But yeah, in the studio I would have music or a podcast in the background. My faithful English lab snoring behind me usually. He's a great studio dog. He knows the routine. We get in, he knows that he's going to get a treat, so he's got to go to his bed, blah, blah, blah. But no, he's great. But man, those guys are dialed into food and when they're supposed to be fed, and pretty crazy. All right, this is too much of a mass here, even though that's how I drew it in my thumbnail. But again, this was just mainly for spatial arrangements and relationships. So I'm going to carve in some sky holes. And that's what's cool about this subtractive painting, that all of a sudden I'm taking this out, but I've created a branch, and what I've left in, this branch here, I can play with values a little bit if I want to. All right, this is a little dark. This is dark here too. I don't want it to be that dark, so I'm going to use a bigger wipeout. And again, I want to get too much paint. I'm starting to get more paint than I should on here, but I don't know. Again, I love this finger painting quality. Okay, there's my darkest dark. And I think I lied. I'm not going to go dark to light. Well, I am kind of in a way. I want to see what my colors I want to do for my trees, my skies, because that's going to tie in with everything else that I'm doing here. So I'm going to try a little, again, my little cheat petal of ultramarine blue. Maybe I'll throw some Meridian. It's kind of a nice mixture sometimes, these two together. Okay, more Meridian, because I want it lighter. But it is pretty amazing, just those two colors in here. It's not Meridian, it's not ultramarine. It's got a nice, something about not using pure colors, at least in skies, highlights and things like that. Your choice. Again, you're the architect of how you want this to look. So I'm going to try to get a fair amount of paint, get a good petal going here without over pedaling and messing up my palette. Okay, I know I'm going to want to glow in the middle, so I might dip in there. I'm going to blend these together on here so we can kind of see where we're going. All right, I'm going to clean that off because I want kind of a cool transition down here. I'm not sure if I'm going to use, well, here's where this comes in handy, my ultramarine blue and alizarin. Get that kind of cool purple there. And I'm just testing these out. I really don't know, I might go here and say, well, I can always go here and add some light, but it's got blue in it. Lighten that up, that might be kind of cool. So there's an interesting purple. It's a little loud, but I'm going to want to kind of transition all these really. This is going to be sort of right now what I put down here. I'm going to change that. All of this is subject to change, but the less I have to change, the better. So I just like not having that pressure on me, knowing that I can change it should I want to change it. So there's that permanent red that I talked about, the Van Gogh, not so expensive line of paints. And that gives kind of a nice, brilliant, cool pink. So my cad yellow is going to warm that up. How does that look together? See, I start to get an orange, kind of swirl it around. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know, it's going to be different here, plus I have some residual paint. All right, how would this blend together? Let's say I just kind of go light viridian the whole way down here. That's in the middle, and some of this yellow. How does that work? So I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm starting to see a nice little glow. I don't know about this color yet, but I might clean that up. I know that's these two together, and I know I need to mix some more paint because I didn't put enough out there. I was still experimenting. Testing my colors, kind of like dipping your toes in the water. See, that's got way too much of that red. It's powerful. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Let's clean up that puddle a little bit. There's something in here. I can add and subtract in here, but I think, you can kind of gather what's going on here. And man, it's degrees of how much of this to that. It's, and we're going to play with that when we get up here. But I kind of like that. Whether I have enough paint on there or not, I'm not sure. But I'm going to go for it. And actually, I like this size brush, so I should have started with another one I could kept clean. That's a little big. That's the same size. All right. So I'm going to loosen up this brush a little bit. Brand new brush. Yeah, we'll see. I'm just looking at the tip, seeing how sharp I can get it. But let's just start. Wow, that is moppy. This brush, I haven't used this one, as I mentioned. But I just want to get some tone up here. Yeah, it's not a bad tone. And again, if I pick up some of this ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mix up here, I don't know, in a way it's not so bad right now, but for the most part I want to keep it clean. Just building, this is how I paint. I know there's some people that can outline everything kind of like a watercolor and have it perfectly put on here. I don't know, it's funny how your style evolves. Whether it's genetic, do you untie your shoes before you take them off kind of thing, or you just kick them off, Love all those weird little psychological tests. So same thing with paints. I've seen, Ken Oster, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, he would have the most moppiest brushes, and you wouldn't think you could do anything with them. And it's kind of his signature thing, like, look at what I can do with, crappy equipment. It's not the equipment, it's what you do with it. But good equipment, that being said, does really help. You don't want to be fighting your materials. So again, I'm just kind of putting in here lightly. I don't want to get too much paint on here. Pretty thin at this point. Just kind of want to see what my sky is doing. So talking about brushes, Ken Oster. He also had an interesting way of painting cityscapes that I remember seeing him do with he'd hold up a slide with one eye and he'd look at it through that eye, and then he would translate that onto the canvas. Pretty amazing. He did some amazing scenes of downtown San Francisco, tugboats, all this kind of stuff. The bars is what I love most. He would do these really, famous downtown San Francisco bars, and oftentimes, I don't know if they had a why can't I think of the word when something's on a wall, mural, like George Bellows, the boxer in the background, so he'd have that, and the bartender shaking his mixture, and then behind him is rows of bottles, just so beautifully designed. I hadn't seen anybody else ever do that. And then, of course, if something's kind of popular and successful, all of a sudden, gee, guess what? I'm seeing more of that. But to me, he was kind of the inventor of that style. And there's people today that I see doing different works, something different, like, wow, that's so cool, subject matter-wise, and execution, of course. But we all kind of look at each other one way or another, admire, and you can be inspired like that. You can, you're always going to paint the way you're going to paint, in my opinion, unless it's such a, I don't want to say formula, but I just did. You're going to paint how you paint. I think it's almost genetic again, about how sloppy is your palette or your approach. I mean, you'll find that. That's really kind of finding your voice. Okay, again, I'm just keeping this stuff loose. It's a little clumsy of a transition of color right now, but the more we build, the better that'll be. All right, I'm just trying to see relationships now. There was that Viridian, and no, it wasn't Viridian. It was ultramarine blue and alizarin mixture that I have as one of my dark options. And I put a little bit of white in there, and then I put a little bit more of that, my light ultramarine blue white mixture in this. Let's see, where am I going? All right, so I lost track there. But all this stuff is shared, and that's kind of what makes it, see, look how bright that got. Wow. All the subtle shifts that you can do. The only time I use a lot of white is the skies. I really try to avoid, like, there's no white in here. There'll be a little in these rocks, there'll be a little in the trunks, but I try to avoid it, especially in your darks, keep those really rich and vibrant, because white's going to cool things off, and some people will call it getting muddy, and so I'm trying to work, like, even though this is over here, how does this, I want to make sure that's the same tone throughout, kind of working this way, up and down, right and left and right. Just get some pigment in these places. All the stuff will, little by little, come together. I can't remember the, earliest painting I've done, but all right. The point is to have fun and remember the good times of all of it. This is a good time. You have to remember it's happening right now. Hopefully for you guys, it is for me. Yeah, it's a different experience. Because usually I'm just at my studio, as I mentioned, with my dog, and or I'm outside, usually by myself these days. I kind of lost my good painting buddy. He moved away, so if I choose to go out, I'm usually by myself, and that's okay too. Put in your headphones, your earbuds, whatever you might have, and listen to nature. There's something on my morning walks. We live right next to a nature preserve, and I used to always play music, and then I stopped doing that. I just kind of slowed down and took that time for myself and to welcome in the day. It's a good little exercise. So, okay, I got enough stuff up in the sky, I'm using this little bright because it's stiffer. It's got kind of a nice little, I can control it more than that big floppy flat that I was starting with. This one here, this is really floppy. And I usually like these, Robert Simmons. Yeah, just maybe it's too big. But it'll be good for another application. I'm just not loving it for this right now. Yeah, bigger painting, covering some ground, you know, that's what you want. Everything's to scale with what you're doing. If you're painting bigger, you want bigger puddles. You don't want to have to be mixing paint all the time. If you're painting bigger, also bigger brushes. It's all about scale because you'll be finding it. This little thing, you know, it's like trying to paint a house with a toothbrush kind of concept. You got to cover ground, you got to cover canvas. All right, have I told you I like this already? That I'm heading in the right direction? I think I have, but I'll keep just mumbling on. Yeah, much better. Okay, so here's coming up here. And I'm going to see if I can just sort of, you know, scumble it up here. I don't have to remix this whole sky, but I might have to. So let's see where this goes. Really light. And paint's still kind of wet, so I can kind of blend it with this. I might be able to just get by. Gets a little tricky in here. And I might have got a little strung out on all these sky holes. I might edit some that I saw. I'm like, do you really need that many? They're fun, but again, that's where you can get carried away. Okay, well that's kind of transitioning without, again, having to mix that whole proportion. I can dry off this round, and rounds are so versatile. I mean, I can, you know, now be on my side, its side rather, and you know, kind of do that. Yeah, there's enough little bit of wet pigment. It's loose up here. Again, it's not a completely dry panel. Yeah, okay, let's see. I might lose this guy right here. I just don't think that's adding much to it. And I don't know, when I'm doing these things, again, I'm not a photorealistic guy, or I'm definitely styling it. I want the viewer to see the handwork, that to know the human, you know, was here. There was energy that created this thing. You never know the life of a painting. You know, once it leaves your hands, your studio, your galleries, wherever, you know, where does it go? And, you know, the generations after whoever bought it in the first place, you know, do they value it? Is it their style? Does it clash with their couch? You just never know what's all going to happen. But, you know, you can't worry about that. Of course, you hope that your little babies are going to be loved and cherished forever, but we have no control over that. I think what we do have control over is right here, what we're doing, make the best product you can. And if you do, chances are it's going to survive the test of time. And again, you can't get hung up. That's no way to be motivated. I need to do this so you know, it'll live on forever. Again, if it's a good painting, you really hope it does. Hi there, my name is Steve Curry, and I'm a landscape painter living in Ojai, California. My particular approach to oil painting is impressionistic in the sense that it's my impression of the scene. I'm going to stylize it, I'm going to design it, I want to really make it mine, put my signature on it. I'm not painting overly tight, I'm not painting overly loose. It's somewhere right happy in the middle. My palette is not overly complex, again, that's right in the middle. That's where I like it, where I can control the colors and hopefully come out with work that I'm proud of. In this workshop, I'm going to teach you how to simplify a landscape. So the image we're going to paint today is kind of an historic tree located on 17 Mile Drive in Carmel. They call it the ghost tree because the qualities of these coastal cypresses with the wind and the way they grow kind of have this twisted beauty, sort of upward like a ghost in flight. Not that I've seen a ghost in flight, but that's what intrigued me most about this scene. I've taken it down, edited it down, and really emphasized that beauty of the twisting and upward movement. I'm focusing primarily on a landscape, but you truly could take the fundamentals, the building blocks of this painting and apply it to any subject. This workshop is perfect for beginners, for intermediates, and for anybody wanting to take their paintings to the next level. The things that you'll take away from this workshop are how to simplify a scene, how to design it via a thumbnail, your proportions. Take that, apply it to the panel with a simple monochromatic block in. From there, we're going to take our colors in the limited palette, apply it to the canvas or the panel, and ultimately come out with something you're happy with and have fun.
Well, that is Finding Your Voice, Painting with Creative Expression with Steve Curry. Love that video. You can find the full-length video at painttube.tv. Just put in the discount code that you'll find up in the comments section. Now let's get right to our interview with Steve Curry. Hi there, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine. Today we have a very special guest, Steve Curry, who is going to blow you away, at least when you see his artwork it will. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Eric.
I have fallen in love with your artwork. I don't know, there's something about it that harkens back to the 1930s and Maurice Braun and Percy Gray and all of those classic plein air painters who really kind of started the plein air movement in America. And your work to me just has that classic old feel, yet kind of modern sensibilities to it.
That's well, first of all, I love all those people too, and certainly inspired me to just strive. You look at that art and how did they do it, and can I do it? And it's not like, is it time that makes it more beautiful, or is it the way they did it? And I think it's a little bit of everything, but it's inspirational, and that's what I do strive to go for that look without completely copying something.
Well, that's the key, is you don't want to do what somebody else has done and copy it.
Correct.
But you want to kind of, they all had a certain, what I would call sensitivity to their work. You know, subtle little shifts in values that made a huge difference, or, you know, they could make something really glow without going over the top with color and so on.
Right.
And you have managed to kind of live up to that, and I just am in love with your work.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much.
I don't mean to make you blush or.
Yeah, I was going to say, buy me a drink first, man. Like, yeah. So no, it's really it's great to hear, and because it's something that I've wanted to chase, and I feel I'm still chasing, forever will be chasing. And how do you create illumination? You know, how do you have it glow? And it's a lot of trial and error and a lot of study, and it's so fun. The chase is so fun.
Now you have a really interesting background because you were in a related industry. I mean, you've been doing
Sure.
graphics and art, and I want to learn all about that. Why don't you kind of give us a little bit of a starting point? Where did this thought about making art or creating art or even appreciating art, where did that come from?
You know, I was lucky enough to grow up in an art family. My dad was one of the original Mad Men, old art director, went to New York, you know, after graduating the art center, where he met my uncle. So even my related, you know, my relatives, you know, were really amazing artists and painters. So that was always kind of present. And, you know, when he came back and I was old enough to appreciate it, and I mean like 5, 6 years old, I remember all the family gatherings were, people in the industry, and these guys knew how to draw and paint, and that's what they loved doing when they weren't doing advertising. And even the work that I've seen, I have some old comps of his, and how they, you had to indicate and sell to a client. It had to be right on. No Photoshop, no computer. So that was, I don't know, there's some magic in that. And then you start drawing whatever it's exciting for you as a little kid, race cars or army men or whatever. I didn't always embrace it. You're going through different phases of your life. But when it came time to go to college, so what am I good at? It was like, well, I guess I'm going to study this illustration thing. I always like to draw and create images, and this is a way of making a living. But I got recruited into graphic design, which I kind of am glad of. That was a nice transition. It was a very marketable skill and career when I got out of college, and I got hired at really exciting, LA firms that were working on the Olympics and Pioneer Electronics and Holland American Cruise Lines. It was at my first place, and that's the last time I saw original art coming in. Wilson McLean was doing a whole series of posters for Holland America, and they're big, and they're commercially illustrated, and it was gorgeous, and guys are still doing hand lettering. It was right at the cusp of all the stuff going to computer and digital and whatnot in 1982. So,
oh boy, that was a really interesting era, because when the Macintosh came out and the first laser printer, all of a sudden, I was one of those people, but all of a sudden everybody thought, well, I can do my own design now.
Totally.
And so you had a lot of small businesses doing really crummy looking
newsletters
stuff, with cartoon type or something. And then, but that really, from what I have learned in talking to a lot of those illustrators who are now fine art painters or not even alive anymore, is that just kind of put a stop to everybody's jobs. All these people were making a living as illustrators, and draw me this, create this for me, and then boom, it was about clip art, or it was about, probably not clip art in the major agencies, but it was all done basically printed out in the early stages on, I don't remember the types of printers they called them, but all those comps
Dot
were
matrix,
yeah. I mean, I remember the comps, we'd take the tape and make borders, and we'd cut it with a razor knife, and we'd take the type and we would wax it and lay it in.
Letraset, you'd rub them down,
That's right.
Yeah, chart graph, that was it. You got little lines and dots, and crazy.
But we would go to a typesetter, and we'd get this, they'd print out this photographic paper, and then we'd wax it.
Oh yeah,
or rubber cement, line it up and stick it on, or
X-Acto knives, boards with T-squares and triangles. I kind of miss the handwork of hand inking things still and all that, but that was right at that time, and I had really good friends that had these mega typesetting companies, especially in Los Angeles, and overnight these guys are throwing away their CompuGraphic machines. They still owed, and they were out of business. There was no turning back. That was the first casualty I saw of, technology, and
and it's something that it's not so much that artists face, but it's something that all businesses face.
Sure.
Is that, you have to always be looking for what's next, and we all get so in love with what we do,
right,
in love with how we do it, that we sometimes can't see what's next. But that's not necessarily the case for artists, but it certainly was for illustrators. And I suppose those illustrators, some of them kind of transitioned to trying to figure out how to do it in the computer. But I know other people who were like, don't know how to do this, not going to do it.
Don't want
to do it, and so they changed their careers.
Well, remember Paperman Graphics by any chance?
Yeah.
Like all that Peter Palumbi, all that beautiful airbrush art that was so seductive, Nagels, that kind of thing. Dennis Mukai, who was part of that era, he lives in Ojai now, and he still does fine art and things like that. So, but you have to, unless you can hold on to that. I like how things revert back to like vinyl records are now kind of hip again, and but that's always going to be kind of specialty, maybe niche. The beauty of oil painting, and it's always been the same. There's really no revelations on how to create a beautiful painting. Better materials, I think. More access to wonderful education and whatnot. But that particular, I don't know, you know, and there are robotic things that can paint. That's pretty freaky. If you've seen that, it's
Well,
like,
there are elephants on YouTube that can paint.
well, yeah, right, yeah.
So you, I understand you ended up, you were working for others, and then you ended up starting your own firm.
Yeah, you know, 6 years of working for other people. The last guy was more of a boutique firm, doing really cool things, but a small company. And again, this is pre-computers, pretty simple to open up your own shop. A few drafting tables and, you know, pens and phones, of course, and all that. So I got a little space. Actually, I worked at his space for a little bit. He was a really cool guy. We both shared a love for we're both gearheads for a little bit. He was a big collector of motorcycles and all this stuff. Anyhow, so, and I got along with him, and he took pride into having people go off on their own. If you went off to somebody else, you were dead to him. But if you were like, no, I've learned so much from you and blah, 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 then he was really cool. But I traded out work. That's why I paid for my space. And the very first job I got, because I had, you know, the girl on a certain line would answer my phone, and on his phone it would be a different, you know, thing. It was great. So I landed the NASA job. It was Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena.
JPL,
but it was
yeah.
JPL. The Voyager was encountering Neptune. It was the last planet that they were going to pass by. So it was kind of a big deal, and I'm like, wow, NASA, like, check it. I mean, that's a big client for just some little guy in a corner. Trading out space or whatever. So I kind of had them fooled. I was in a little over my head, but I managed to pull it off, and you know, they liked it so much, we ended up designing the set for when the encounter actually happened. And that project, that clout, you know, begot other nice accounts and referrals from printers, and you grow, and it was really fun. The upside was really fun. And we ran it pretty hard for, I don't know, 18, not 20 years quite, but it sort of reached that peak. I mean, we had, you know, that was the beginning. We had a lot of the entertainment companies, you know, Sony TriStar and Paramount, MGM, car companies were Nissan, and anyhow, it was fun times. And then, as you were saying, you know, looking to the future and things like that, the dot-com craze, kind of 98, 99 was really, it was so nutty because there was so much funny money into the industry.
I was there. I was in the midst of it.
Isn't that crazy? And talent was hard to find because designers were getting sucked off into these companies. And so that was a little bit of a strange thing. And our print, we were mostly print, tangible, you know, paper and all these really cool projects. Everything was kind of going digital, so that was a little bit of a shift, but we could do that. But then it was, you know, a good third of our client base was corporate. So annual reports, beautiful, lush annual reports. I don't even think people do that anymore. But, you know, it wouldn't blink twice, about $500,000 on that one project, between printing, design, photography, copywriting.
Yeah. I mean, Sotheby's just stopped doing catalogs recently.
So expensive,
Yeah.
you know. But
I mean, but print is so wonderful.
I love it.
You know, that we still print Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air
Sure.
magazine, in spite of the fact that, you know, there are lots of motivations to not do that. But, you know, I kept every Sotheby's catalog I ever got, and I still pick them up and I look through them. They're like
Yeah.
art books to me. I'm not going to do that with a PDF.
Yeah, no, I know. Or a car brochure. Yeah, anyhow, I still think that tactile, tangible thing is wonderful. But it was starting to go. And
So you decided to close your agency. What did you do?
well, there were two events after that. There was, the corporate scandal of Enron and WorldCom took all those annual reports away. And then the last nail in the coffin was really 9/11. That just, everybody started retracting. So here I am with a big office and 18 people, and little by little you cut sandbags, and towards the end there's like, you know, 3 of us and this rattling around this big warehouse that I had designed and built out, and it's just like, you know, call it, throw in the towel, you know, it's just, I'm not going to die here. So
Right.
had to close the doors, and now what do I do with the rest of my life?
Well, you know, and that's an interesting transition, because when you go through that, which I did in the same era, I had a business that basically 9/11 crushed.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're going through that, your head is in a pretty tough place. It's like, wow, you know, I had, at least mine was, you know, I had to kind of figure out, all right, now I got to reinvent myself.
You do, no,
you
exactly.
really reinvented yourself in a pretty interesting way. So how did that, what was the process of saying, all right, I'm going to go do artwork now?
It wasn't as clean of a from A to B as I would like. That was a hard landing. I'm like, wow, this is not how I thought the last day of owning my business would be like. But you know, I was living in the Palisades at a really beautiful, expensive house, and you know, I had obligations, and my head was spinning, and you know, was doing my then wife was, you know, trying to do real estate, and that was kind of a viable thing. But it kind of transitioned from the Palisades. We sold that place for a king's ransom and moved to Ojai. And I thought, oh my God, this is great. I can take all this money off the table and raise the kids in this, you know, bucolic setting, and, you know, really simplify life, and you know, I'll figure it out. But it kind of did that. But in the process, I still didn't need, what do I do? And so in my first little house, I had a rock little cabin with a fireplace, and the guy used to live there in the 20s. That was like a little outbuilding, and that was my studio, and I got to pretend I was some old painter painting in there with a fireplace in the winter. It was wonderful, but you know, little by little, and the early stuff was like, you know, it was presentable, but not all that, you know. And
So did you have, was your mindset at the time of, I got money in the bank, I'm just going to paint for fun?
No.
Or was your mindset, I'm going to turn this into a living?
My mind says nothing's for, I mean, if I'm going to do this, I need the validation of people loving your work enough to buy it.
Yeah.
Galleries, you know, loving your work enough to represent you. A hobbyist painter never, ever interests me at all. I mean, that's just me. I don't know. That drives me, you know, because otherwise I'm just doing it and putting it in a corner or giving it away to relatives or something. That's not gratifying to me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That's, you know, I'm in 3 galleries now, almost 4. We'll see what happens. But, and I don't paint much because I can't, because I'm running all this, but there's something about that, check that box. Somebody else walks in, falls in love with it, gives them money
that's true.
for it. It's not always about the money. But how long from the time you set yourself up as an artist till you sold your first painting?
You know, not all that long, because that little rock house that I told you about, we were selling that house before I moved into an even bigger house. This is where the expenses got a little crazy. But it was a beautiful house on an acre on the east end of Ojai, which is out in the orchards. A beautiful place. So somebody coming through was looking in the rock house and asked, who are these paintings? Are these for sale? And I think, you know, there were Ojai paintings, and my wife was calling in saying, he wants to buy them. What do you sell them for? I'm like, I don't know, $150, you know, and that was a lot of money. I'm like, oh my God. And you know, so anyhow, that was that. Then I got accepted into the little art in the park thing where you hang your work in the weekend and people come. And so that was, from what I remember, not that long. And even when I was moving out of the Palisades, I was painting in that studio that I had there for maybe a year. Yeah, a year in there, and you know, one of the realtors bought a big painting or had it traded out in commissions or something like that. So I was starting to get that recognition.
So how long now have you been supporting yourself, supporting your family as an artist?
I would say, first of all, I really dialed back overhead, you know.
Well, we all have
yeah,
to,
no more big houses, all that kind of stuff. So you kind of, you know, and I don't mind doing that. I love that kind of feel like you're back in college or whatever. So for me, that was very easy to do. So I'm kind of cheating when I say.
I draw the line at cots and mattresses on the floor.
No. I still have a real bed. I eat real food. But anyhow, I would say the last, I mean, fully supporting myself, family, that, you know, 18 years. I've been doing for 20, but 18 between lowering things, it all equates, but yeah.
So what is your best advice if somebody's watching this and they want to make that transition from being a hobbyist to actually becoming a professional part-time or full-time? Talk to us about what's the mindset got to be? What are the critical steps that they need to take?
Well, I think for me, I know that if I had to make a living from day one, that would be way too much pressure. Like, you're going to starve next week if you don't sell a painting today. At least I had some money in the bank. I, again, throttled my overhead back to where I had some runway. How long am I going to do this? And I don't know if I thought I'm going to give myself a year or 2 years or whatever, but I probably had a runway of about that time. So in that time, I didn't have that intense pressure, because I think that can kill any venture. I'm going to go off and be a longshoreman or whatever it is. If what you're doing, your passion, still needs to turn into something you want to be supporting yourself, I would say don't have that pressure. I might have missed I'm going off on just a nice way of transitioning into it and making it real, because otherwise too many other things, life gets in the way, you get pulled here and there. Somebody offers you money, half the money you were making before, to do the same kind of job, and you go, well, that's a known, because this other art thing's an unknown. I had plenty of people say, you're never going to make a living off of that. And it's just like, it's like, I won't say what I was thinking, but it was cool, because that pisses you off. Yeah, I am.
It drives you.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, you get this sense of resolve, and you want to prove something to somebody.
Yeah, it's motivating, kind of funny, so.
Well, talk to me about mindset. What if you were going to give anybody advice about, I think you're right about the idea of transitioning. First off, I like the idea of, let's say you're a doctor. There are a lot of doctors who paint.
Right.
And I have a doctor friend who's like, I can't wait to retire and make my living as an artist. And I said, well, you're going to go from making, $800,000 a year to making a lot less. Are you ready for that?
A lot less, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'm cool with that. It's not always about the money, but I'm going to have some money. So it's like, okay, well, 5 years before you're ready to retire, start doing it now.
Right.
Kind of transition yourself up a little bit every year, so you get to, because it, like you say, it takes a couple of years before you're even going to sell any paintings, right, in some cases. And then, you got to get your rhythm and get disciplined and learn all the ropes about the framing and the gallery relationships, and you got to get galleries and all of those things. But there's got to be a mindset tied to it, I think, and you seem to have mastered that.
Well, I know I always wanted to be in galleries. I didn't want to be coffee shops and restaurants and, that sort of thing, which is nothing wrong with it, but that's that level of hobbyist, kind of making a little spare change kind of stuff. Because your work is, I think, undervalued. I like putting, a good price on my work, and granted the galleries are taking 50% usually, and God bless them, because they are representing and putting it out there, and so many other people that you never have access to are seeing that. Plus, I don't want to be doing all that. I want to be painting. I don't want to be marketing. So the mindset, I think I keep drifting away from what you're trying to say. The mindset is have your goals set. What do you really want to achieve with it? Is it, I just want to do this for fun and be a hobbyist, and if I get them in coffee shops, that's fine with me. If you want to be in galleries and eventually make a living, completely support yourself on, then how does my lifestyle, my overhead, do my 5 collector cars have to go, or can I still keep those and my 3 other houses? Probably not, unless you're amazingly talented, which is, you know that by now.
Well, talent may not play into it. I mean, you and I both know talented artists who can paint circles around both of us, and you can paint circles around me, and yet they can't figure out how to make a living. And if they knew how to market themselves and how to apply themselves and have the business skills, they would actually be able to, some of these people, I mean, you and I both know artists that are making at least a couple $1 million a year.
Right.
And I mean, that may not be everybody, but and then there are people out there who make great livings who really aren't all that good. Now, right, what you hope for is that somebody's making a great living and they're also they're really good.
Yeah.
But I think there's a certain amount of determination that has to take place, that you gotta set it up in here. You got to envision where you're going, and
I believe so.
I
Yeah.
sense that you did a lot.
Yeah.
Of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, Van Gogh, mega talent. I think in his living lifetime, what was it, 2 paintings he sold?
Yeah.
And maybe that wasn't his mindset. It wasn't about selling work or supporting himself. I can't speak to that, but it's, that's like one of those tragedies, in my opinion. I don't want to be facing, that tortured artist and only, starving and going insane. Anyhow. So yes, having a plan, whatever your particular plan is, and really, just like predicting the future. Where do I want to be? All that. Which galleries are there? Which are coming up? Which are maybe retiring or closing? I just had one in New Mexico close, and okay, well, I need to replace that probably, or focus more on the ones I have. It's just always that next step, and then in the process, still creating. And when you're creating, I don't want to be thinking about all that stuff. I just want to be thinking about, what's in front of me and how beautiful can I do it.
So you're creating. Do you have a particular routine? Do you like say, all right, I'm going to be in my studio at 8 o'clock every morning, or
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. It's fun. I call certain other. I have a friend up north, and I called at, I don't know, 7 o'clock. I said, I didn't wake you, did I? And he's all, are you kidding me? As an artist, you need to be up working anyhow. So he and I mean, it's that similar kind of thing. Yeah, I definitely have a routine. My wife's up early. I get up early. The dog's awake. He knows a routine. Is it a day we do this and then go to the studio, or is it the walk in the studio, or whatever? So he's got it down. He knows where his bed is, the streets are. I know when it's lunchtime because I'm hungry, I'm a little tired, and my studio's like 10 minutes away from the house. So I drive home, feed him, I eat, I get recharged, I go back and I do an afternoon. So that's a nice rhythm, and I really love those days where that's all I have to do. I get pissed off if I have to do another appointment, like that's ruining the rest of my day, because I want that clean time, that really clean, precious time.
So I'm this is fascinating to me, because you spent 20 years as an entrepreneur. You became very successful, very financially successful. You were like in this high-speed game.
That was crazy.
You're still doing art, but you're in this
Crazy.
high-speed game. You're going 80, 90, 100 miles an hour for 15, 16, 18 years straight.
Yeah.
And now you're painting all day.
Yeah.
And I wonder, could I do that? I mean, I love to paint.
You can. I know you can. I know
Well,
you well enough. I think in this week, I sense that. Yeah.
But do you ever find yourself missing the stimuli of what you did
in the
before?
beginning I did, because I didn't have as many galleries or as much of a, I'm always feeling I'm behind. Like I need to catch up, and that's pretty cool, because that's adrenaline to keep working fast and hard. Not fast, but producing. And around the holidays, I got the throttle back, because everything slows down, and you get to do that and recharge your batteries a little bit. But I'm still, very driven to.
Well, and you have to anticipate the holidays, like any retailer, I suppose.
Right.
You
Oh, yeah.
got to figure out how many galleries need how many paintings by.
Right. All my work
Christmas
is done.
shopping season.
Yeah, all my work is done, not all, but if that's what I'm building for, I better have it together in October to give to them, and do some stragglers that I can still, push along, some of these smaller pieces that I know will sell, and they're asking for them. Everybody, just it's great. They make money, I make money. So it's fun.
Well, like I said, I'm in love with your paintings, but I'm also in love with your frames. I mean, just looking back at your work and the delicacy behind it, and the they just, I don't know, they pull me in. Where do you get your ideas? Where do you get your source material? Do you ever go out plein air painting? What is your process for creating your next masterpiece?
Well, first of all, not all of my paintings are in these frames. The larger formats are more traditional frames, but I do enjoy painting this style. It's almost like I go back into time to create a piece that feels like that. But I'm still wanting that romantic, 1930s, 1920s feel whenever I can get it in all of my work. But inspiration and where these things come from, I do a lot of thumbnails and spatial arrangements. A lot of it's out of my head. One of the first guys that I really fell in love with was Sheehan. And Sheehan, I hope I'm saying that right, but I looked at his work, I'm like, oh my God, look at these lush, gorgeous, end of day, marsh settings. And I remember calling him or emailing him back then. How do you do it? Do you go out playing there? Where are these scenes? All out of his head kind of thing. So that's like, wow, you could do that. And it takes discipline and a lot of that, but certainly you need to have that working knowledge of what nature looks like. How does the sky, and I'm always observing whether I'm painting or not, that time of day, that morning when we're going on early hikes, and I got my iPhone if I want to try to grab something. God, the moon's coming, or the sun's coming up and the moon's already there, all that. It's just amazing stuff, but it's drawn from everything. My plein air days were really full at the beginning because I had buddies that I go out with, and I love it. But I lost them. They're moved on, and there was a certain accountability when you guys have made plans. We're going out today, blah blah blah, and you're going to show up when it's cold and you're on your own versus the warm studio. Like, I don't know, maybe the studio looks a little better today. And then I got really comfortable in the studio, and also I had some painter friends outdoors. I told you the story the other night. We're out and there's 3 of us, and at the end of the afternoon, I go over and look at one of them, and I'm like, he's got a full nocturne painted. Nothing of the scene other than the trees and some things that were there. Completely invented, but completely believable, completely beautiful. And I'm like, wow, yeah.
But that comes from having done it.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, you got to know what you're.
I know who you're referring to. I won't mention names, but he probably stood at his easel outdoors,
sure,
on a cold night with a full moon. 50 times or 100 times doing those things. And the same thing with plein air work is that, you had a season in your life where you were doing a lot of plein air work. I know you don't do as much of it now. And that season is what trains you, because when you look at these paintings, they look like plein air paintings. They look like studio versions of plein air paintings. Right. But what I mean by that is, if you look at a photograph that an artist is painted from, let's say they're just copying something on their iPhone, shadows are dark.
Yeah, right.
The sky is blown
color,
out.
Right.
And the only way to really learn how to paint in terms of seeing the light and shadow and so on is to initially get outdoors. And you did that. You put in your time. And that now reflects on all of your studio work.
Yeah, observation for sure. And it's all of my galleries, they go, we don't care if it's plein air or studio. We just want a beautiful painting. Most of their clients aren't coming. Some of them do. Where was this painted? Blah, blah, blah. And usually I can, not all, a lot of my paintings are ethereal and they're kind of collectively pulled together, but there's some when I know it's a Santa Barbara show, we're painting Santa Barbara, okay, I got to do recognizable places. I did one, anyhow, that's a whole, I'm going to...
No, go there. Go there, you got to go there.
No, I didn't want to say the names or whatever, but their house was in the background, happened to be it's Ralph and Diane Waterhouse, and Diane, it's like, our house is right back there, it's the Douglas Preserve. And so anyhow, it ended up going to them. Ralph and I traded paintings, and but so that was a real legit place. But a lot of them is collective observation. Is it a oak tree today, a eucalyptus? And I love trees, obviously. I hard not to have a tree in any of the things I paint. So I'm not a still life guy like Jeff Flagg or people that do that stuff so good. I mean,
you paint what you love.
Yeah.
And no painter, as far as I'm concerned, no artist should not. You should only paint what you love. I mean, sometimes to make a living, you got to paint something. But to me, when the gallery owner calls and says, that painting you did with that little red barn, I could sell that 30 more times.
Right.
And from my standpoint, it's like, no, I'm bored with that. I'm
Well,
gonna
you're
paint
selling
what I
your
want.
soul at that point too.
Are you still learning?
Always. You never arrive.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have that thirst. If you knew the end of the book, why even keep reading?
That's right.
Yeah.
If we talked in the beginning about some artists that I think your paintings remind me of, they're not copies of, but they kind of harken back
The essence
to
or
a
whatever,
particular
yeah.
time. If there was one of those artists, any artist in the world that you could sit down with for an hour,
How cool would that be?
who would that artist be and what would you ask them?
I know the name as soon as you started saying it. I don't know all that much about him, and there's not a lot of work published about him, mainly because San Francisco fire wiped out a lot of what was there, and I'm saving the name till I build it up here.
That's good.
But
Yeah,
the
that's-
Oakland Museum of Art has, what I've heard, the biggest collection in the world of his work, maybe his wife as well.
I know
and
exactly
that only,
who you're going to say.
Right, it only breaks out once in a while, but it's Arthur Matthews.
Yeah.
And so that guy was, I think he's kind of undersung, and I don't know why. Again, Edgar Payne, nothing wrong with any of those other giants, Percy Gray and Guy Rose, and I mean, God, what a time that those guys grew up in. But Arthur Matthews was building that whole, he wanted to turn San Francisco in, as I've read, as a modern day Athens, just this collective. He was doing, decorative arts with furniture and the frames they'd make, and an incredible painter. Oh my God.
Yeah. And his wife was an incredible artist as well.
Yeah. So can I add one more name?
Yeah.
N.C. Wyeth. Oh my
N.C.
God. Jeez.
Okay, so let's go back to Arthur. So you're sitting around over a couple of beers, and you're saying, "Listen, Art, I've got one burning question."
Maybe the burning question is, tell me the secret to how you do all this, and I know you can't. If I could just mind meld, we just touch fingers and I've got it all,
Yeah.
that would be awesome. But he could tell me, he could show me, just like any other wonderful workshop. It's still up to you to take that, put it in your mind, and have it come out yourself. But I would love, if it's one question, tell me the magic.
Well, there's something about his compositions that are magical, and there is something about how he interprets, especially his figure work.
Yeah, I know.
How he interprets the figure. I mean, it's kind of like you referred to an artist who was outdoors painting something as a reference, but it came out, he had interpreted it completely different. Matthews seemed to interpret the scenes and the figures. It was very idyllic and stylized, and I look at that, and that's why I'm drawn to your work. It's very similar to me, and so when you're dead and gone, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. So I don't know what they're going to be. I think I'm already asked. I've come up with every question ever.
Yeah, I wish we had these kind of tapes of all those guys. Wouldn't that be cool?
Well, that's why I do this. When I approach artists like you, one of the first things I say is, wouldn't it have been nice if we had a tape of John Singer Sargent painting? Because we all think we know how he painted.
Yeah.
But, if you look at a Richard Schmid painting, and you look at that Richard Schmid painting and you think he did that in about 5 seconds, and all these massive strokes and all this energy, and yet when you sit down next to Richard and paint with him, which I've done, it's very meticulous and careful. And so when I look at Sargent, I think the same thing. Sargent was if you've ever seen Stephen Assail paint, he's pounding the paint on the canvas and throwing things around it. That's how I envision Sargent painting. But then again, he might have been very careful. But that's why these things are important, because the people who get to watch these and not only do they get to see your technique, but they also get an insight into your head.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an absolute delight. It's
likewise.
You and I didn't know each other before this week, and we know of each other But I've been watching your work, and it is stand out head and shoulders, stand out above a lot,
Wow,
to me,
check it out.
To me, it's spectacular, and
Thanks so much,
I
Eric.
know I'm making you blush, and
No, I mean, I just need it like written down or something, even though we have it here. Yeah. No,
well, that'll cost you.
Yeah, I know. I figured.
Endorsements.
I figured, yeah.
Right.
I got to make a living.
Well, yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. Well, you're good at
Yeah.
that. Well, thank you for doing this.
All right, Eric, my pleasure.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Our guest today was Steve Curry, and as you got a chance, you could get into his head and find out a little bit more about him. And I hope you'll check out his paintings and check out his website and go to the galleries and see him in person. Today is my first chance to see his work actually in person. And when I see it in person, it's just even better than I thought it was when I had seen it online. So I hope you'll check it out as well. Thank you for watching. I'm Eric Rhodes. That is Finding Your Voice, Painting with Creative Expression with Steve Curry. You can learn more about the full-length video at painttube.tv. Remember, there's a discount code for you up in the comments section. Hey, thanks for watching today. I'm Eric Rhodes.
Hi there, my name is Steve Curry, and I'm a landscape painter living in Ojai, California. My particular approach to oil painting is impressionistic in the sense that it's my impression of the scene. I'm going to stylize it, I'm going to design it, I want to really make it mine, put my signature on it. I'm not painting overly tight, I'm not painting overly loose. It's somewhere right happy in the middle. My palette is not overly complex. Again, that's right in the middle. That's where I like it, where I can control the colors and hopefully come out with work that I'm proud of. In this workshop, I'm going to teach you how to simplify a landscape. So the image we're going to paint today is kind of an historic tree located on 17 Mile Drive in Carmel. They call it the ghost tree because the qualities of these coastal cypresses with the wind and the way they grow kind of have this twisted beauty, sort of upward like a ghost in flight. Not that I've seen a ghost in flight, but that's what intrigued me most about this scene. I've taken it down, edited it down, and really emphasized that beauty of the twisting and upward movement. I'm focusing primarily on a landscape, but you truly could take the fundamentals, the building blocks of this painting and apply it to any subject. This workshop is perfect for beginners, for intermediates, and for anybody wanting to take their paintings to the next level. The things that you'll take away from this workshop are how to simplify a scene, how to design it via a thumbnail, your proportions. Take that, apply it to the panel with a simple monochromatic block-in. From there, we're going to take our colors in the limited palette, apply it to the canvas or the panel, and ultimately come out with something you're happy with and have fun.